Carlos Alcaraz has one of the best disguised, most effective drop shots of all time. And in this lesson, I'm going to show you exactly how he does it so that you can add it to your game and win more matches. First, let's talk about disguise. In one of these forehands, Carlos is about to hit a drop shot, and in the other one, he's about to hit a topspin drive. Can you tell which one is which? Watch as I move through this a little bit, and on both, he's preparing. His shoulders are turning. On both of them, he has his forehand grip. That's really key. On both of them, his left hand is helping to support the racket and also help turn his body and coil in preparation to be able to hit what looks like a topspin shot. And if I go back and forth and I just show you that preparation move, this is a huge part of what makes his drop shot so incredibly effective, is you really don't know for sure which one it is until it's too late. And now, hopefully, you should start to be able to tell which one it is. Which one is the drop shot? Here's the thing. On a topspin shot, we need a closed racket face. And that helps us be able to swing upwards really aggressively and maintain a square face at contact so we don't launch the ball up into the air. On a backspin shot, like a drop shot, we need an open racket face. That means our strings are facing upwards. That helps us be able to start above the height of contact, come down to the point of contact, and make backspin, which is what makes the ball stop and not continue traveling through the court. So that's why this initial move of Carlos is so key, is because on both of them, look at how his racket face is closed. This is the hitting, what's going to be the hitting surface of the racket. So the initial preparation starts with his racket strings facing downwards. And so in either of these forehand swings, he could unwind, drop his racket, and hit topspin. But instead, on the one on the left, I want you to watch how his racket face turns and twists right there. And he makes a transition to opening the racket by bringing the handle forwards, angling the strings upwards, and now he's going into backspin mode instead of topspin mode. This is key takeaway number one. If you can prepare and set up in such a way that initially you could hit either type of shot, your opponent won't know which it is until the last second, and that helps your drop shot be more effective. The second thing that makes Carlos's drop shot so good is how seamlessly he's able to change his grip to enable that difference in the angle of the racket face. So right now, this is his ready position. And Carlos, like most elite tennis players, waits in a topspin forehand grip. In case you're wondering, this is a semi-Western grip, and that grip is designed to be able to keep the racket face closed, to be able to accelerate upwards aggressively and hit with a lot of topspin from below the point of contact upwards. Now watch his right hand closely. As he turns and he coils for what should or could be a topspin swing, watch his right hand. Look at how his fingers start to open, and then he twists the racket handle in his fingers. And what that's doing is it's changing his grip from a semi-Western forehand grip to an Eastern forehand grip. Now, most teachers, including myself, would recommend that you probably use a continental grip for your drop shot, but Carlos uses an Eastern forehand. And what that's doing is it's changing his hand from a really below the racket handle position to more on the side of the racket handle. And that helps him be able to come from high to low, open the racket face, meaning have the angle of the strings be slightly open. That gives the ball the loft, and the height and the softness comes from other technical things, which we'll get into in a second. So this is pretty next level. How long he holds his topspin grip and how late in the swing he finally opens his hand and transitions to his drop shot grip is pretty crazy. My recommendation for you at home is you can experiment with doing this like sneaky disguise, but to be totally honest, most of your opponents probably aren't even looking for these nuances in the first place. Number one. Number two, this adds a lot of complexity to the whole mechanic, the whole technique of how we're hitting the ball. So that's going to lead to more errors. You may be better off not waiting this long and just shifting your grip as you take the racket back. Now let's unpack his swing technique and talk about what makes this shot so effective. So on a topspin forehand, he's going to be swinging from below the point of contact upwards to the point of contact, And at the point of contact, his racket face is slightly closed. That's because he has a tremendous amount of acceleration and force and energy coming upwards through the point of contact. So if his racket face, frankly, was just flat, all of that vertical energy would launch the ball way too far. Now, for normal players like me and you, we don't want our racket face to be this closed because it would send the ball down into the net. But because he's accelerating so aggressively, the angle of his face is actually slightly closed. It's facing downwards a little bit. Now, contrast that with the very next swing, he's going to transition to a drop shot. He disguises it, makes it look like he's going to drive another topspin drop shot. He does the grip change right there. And now, instead of coming from below the point of contact upwards, his racket is falling and coming down to contact. And instead of having the angle of his racket face be slightly closed, now the angle of his racket face is slightly open. What this does is it gives the ball some loft. The only way to hit a really short, really soft shot is to have an arc to the path of your ball. If the ball is traveling straight and you want it to get over the net, all that forward momentum and energy is going to carry the ball through the court and make it easy for your opponent to get to it. When we hit the ball upwards at an angle, watch the trajectory of the ball coming off his racket here. When we hit the ball upward at an angle, then we have the ability to soften the shot, have the peak of that arc be on your own side of the court, which is critical to your success. We'll talk about how to practice that in a minute. And then land really short and then stay short instead of traveling through the court. Hitting great drop shots is a lot of fun, but you have to mix them up intelligently with the rest of your strategy if you're going to be successful. Otherwise, your opponents are going to read it a mile away and beat you easily. That's why you should go to tennissecret.com. I'm going to show you 3 secrets to make half the errors in your very next match. Errors are how most tennis points end. So if you can cut your errors in half, I promise you're going to win more matches. So go check it out. It's free. You'll be inside in just a few seconds. The fourth big factor in being successful with your drop shot is figuring out, what do I do after hitting it? Do I stay back? Do I move in a little bit? Do I come up to the net? Let's look at a case study here of Carlos. He hits his topspin drive. He does his disguise preparation. There's the grip change. There's the high to low motion to create the backspin. There's the loft to be able to hit that soft arcing shot. Then he observes and he watches, all right, how good of a shot is this? And once he recognizes that he hit it really well, I want you to look at how he transitions into just running forwards. Now, at first glance, that might seem like a big liability. Like the last place we want to be is just in the center of the court, right? Well, not if the drop shot you've hit is so good that your opponent is barely going to get to it before the second bounce, and it's so short that the net essentially ends up just blocking the path of the next shot from your opponent. So this is one of those times, one of those examples. In fact, you'll see his hitting partner over here struggling to just not even run into the net because the drop shot was so low and he was scraping and reaching so extremely to try to get his racket on the ball, he almost ran into the net. So from that low reaching position, the net is blocking the shot from your opponent. And so they really can't hit a shot that's going to pin you back behind the baseline. The only thing they can hit in return is something really soft and short, just like you just hit to them. So when you hit a great drop shot, don't stay back here. You want to transition forwards. And how much you transition forwards depends on how much you've just hurt your opponent. The better of a drop shot you've hit and the worse position they're in, the more you want to just think about just transitioning up to a net position, like what Carlos did here, because it handcuffs your opponent and all they can hit is something soft and short back. So he read that from a mile away, he saw it coming, and then he just comfortably is able to get there and tap the ball in for a winner. By now, you understand on paper what it takes, the technique, the disguise, the grip change, the positioning, that's great. But in my experience, most players have very low hand IQ, meaning their hand doesn't have a whole lot of variability or awareness in terms of firmness, and being able to be soft and have some touch is really tough for most players. So here's a series of drills that you can do to develop your hand IQ. First, I'm starting off receiving a ball from a ball machine, just like a medium pace shot. And I'm just leaving my racket out there and letting the ball bounce off. This is super key. And I know I'm hitting volleys right now, but just bear with me for a second. This is going to connect directly to the drop shot in just a sec. So I'm turning to the side, setting my racket up behind the ball, and I am not hitting the ball. Not with my body, not with my feet, not with my hand or my arm. I'm just leaving the racket there. And to begin with, my goal is to grip the handle of the racket at a 5 out of 10 firmness. Meaning if 10 out of 10 is as hard as I can physically grip the racket, I'm starting at a 5 so that when the ball hits my racket, watch my racket respond by going backwards. So we are letting the ball win the collision with the racket, and the ball is actively pushing the racket backwards. What does that do? It removes energy from the ball and softens the shot. The firmer you are, the harder you clamp down on the racket, the less the racket gets pushed back and the more energy stays on the ball and travels through to the other side of the court. I recommend starting this drill off at a 5 out of 10 and then decrease your tension to a 4, to a 3, to a 2, to a 1, and see how loosely you can grip the racket without swinging and hitting the ball, and just let the ball bounce off your racket. This is key awareness and kind of micro skill number 1 that you have to have a great drop shot. In the next drill, we're also taking the ball out of the air. We're going to get to the actual drop shots right after this. Notice how now I have a target set up, and my goal now is to put my racket out behind the incoming ball. We want the ball to come up off my racket, peak on my side of the court, and then softly fall down to my target on the other side. The only way to hit the target is have the right combination of angle of racket face and firmness of hand. If the ball comes off your racket and goes straight and lands past the basket, then you know that your racket is too flat. And if the ball goes up off your racket, but it goes too high or it doesn't go high enough, then you know you have to either be a little bit firmer with your hand or a little bit more relaxed with your hand. So look at how my racket is setting up behind the ball. I'm really not moving it, and I'm relaxing my hand so that the ball wins the collision. That's what's creating the softness, and it's the open racket face that's creating that arc so that the ball lands short on the other side. This is the combination of factors that you need, and we're just learning it in kind of a little micro training environment here to be able to experiment and play with it and find the right combination of the angle of the racket and the firmness of your hand. Now that we understand the relationship between the angle of the racket and the firmness of the hand, we can move back and start hitting some actual drop shots. I want to point out that my target is now further away from the net. It's probably about 6 feet or so, so now probably about 2 meters or so past the net. Don't try to hit a drop shot that's right in front of the net. Give yourself a little bit of margin for error. Notice that I'm standing in no man's land. Carlos hit his drop shots from the baseline or behind the baseline. Please understand that it's exponentially more difficult to hit a great drop shot from that far back. Tactically, it's a little bit off topic, but tactically you probably only want to try your drop shots when you're at least a little bit inside the baseline. Okay, so what I'm doing now is I'm practicing those same dial turns with the angle of the racket and the firmness of my hand, and I'm just making little micro adjustments. Each time I see that the ball is a little bit too short or a little bit too far, I'm either relaxing my hand a little more or a little bit less. Another really important thing to keep in mind here is that my racket is not coming downwards like Alcaraz's. Instead, I'm actually lifting the ball upwards a little bit. The reason for that is I'm not receiving like an 80-mile-an-hour ground stroke. That training session that Alcaraz was doing, his opponent was pounding ATP level ground strokes at him, and so he's having to absorb and take away a tremendous amount of force and energy. And for normal players like us, we're not receiving nearly as much, so we don't have to take away nearly as much either. A really big mistake I see players make is they try to copy their favorite player's drop shot when they start really high and come down really steeply and aggressively. And yes, that adds more backspin, which is fun, and it opens the door for a really crazy good drop shot, but it also dramatically increases the difficulty of the shot. So my recommendation to you is to keep it real simple, and rather than cutting down really aggressively, you may actually even want to lift up a little bit and just find the right combination of firmness of hand and angle of racket. Experiment with these drills, have fun with it, and I promise you're going to dramatically raise your ability to hit these soft touch shots. It's super fun. If you'd like some coaching and guidance on strategy, where to aim and when, make sure to check out the video that's on the screen right now. Enjoy. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.